Simon, Barclays today getting some real bad news.
Yeah, really getting their comeuppance on a number of counts, actually. Yes, they've been fined £7.7 million by the city watchdog for failing to give proper investment advice to some of its customers. It's the largest fine of its kind imposed by the Financial Service Authority, who found that the bank failed to ensure that two of its investment products were suitable for some of its customers. They also failed to adequately explain the risks involved. The bank may also pay up to £60 million in compensation to those customers. Well, Chris Roebuck is visiting professor at Cass Business School and joins me now from the London Stock Exchange. This is a big fine. Was it a big crime?
I think what we have to do when we're looking at these sort of issues is say, is this caused by a single rogue doing something they shouldn't be doing, or is this caused by a basic system failure within the organisation? And certainly this would indicate that this is a system failure, and there should be questions about the capability of the leadership in the organisation that have actually allowed this, and therefore a significant fine is absolutely justified.
If I look at the two funds, they were Aviva funds being sold to Barclays customers. One of them is called the Global Cautious Income Fund, being sold to elderly customers. Now, what's wrong with that? Either that, why wouldn't you want to sell a cautious fund to elderly investors, or perhaps the fund wasn't cautious enough?
Well, this is the key issue in terms of how you label products that you sell. And to be perfectly honest, that applies to everything from supermarkets to estate agents to banks as well. If you imply that something is cautious, and when in terms of market risk it isn't really cautious, you are, to be honest, misrepresenting.
Now, what does this tell us about the banks? And perhaps more interestingly, what does this tell us about the city watchdog? Because they have been busy lately, because last week, in fact, RBS and NatWest were fined £2.8 million for not handling customer complaints adequately.
What it tells us is actually, I suspect that the FSA are digging deeper into what's going on in banks, as indeed are regulators in other industries as well, to make sure that actually customers are protected. And with institutions that are earning significant amounts of money, if you want to make the institution appreciate that it's made a mistake, the fine has to be proportionate so it hurts.
Does this also perhaps reflect the fact that there's a lot of sentiment, anti-bank sentiment, and the FSA feels emboldened by that to perhaps get tougher than they have done in the past?
I'm not necessarily sure it's about there being a feeling that banks are behaving badly and therefore the FSA must respond. I think there's more of a pressure on the FSA to be as tough as regulators are elsewhere. I mean, if we compare what regulators tend to do in Europe with what regulators tend to do in the US, we tend to be much softer over here. And as we have seen from the US, people who break the rules over there don't just get fined, they go to prison.
All right, Chris Roebuck from Cass Business School, thank you very much indeed. And 12,331 customers were affected. Its investments